3/28 of our first virus pandemic of the world that we have all been exposed to. I know some people might have been around in the 50s. I read about the massive pandemic back then, but obviously most of us probably don't remember much of that. It's back in the mid 50s, and I learned a lot about the flus and the Asian flus that have come out of China and why they've been coming out of China and why 90% of the flus have come out of China in the last 50 years to understand why this is happening. And it's a little scary. It doesn't mean that it's going to end if they continue their wet markets and the way that their culture operates over there with doing some of the things they do with animals. So we're going to get going today, and I just want to kind of start off today by letting you know a couple ways that you can get a hold of us and make sure that you are staying in tune, because next week and the week after, we are going to continue these webinars. We're going to continue the communication with you. We're going to continue to keep you in the loop with exactly what is going on. The difference next week is mainly going to be that we are going to add in what's going on with the market and start getting more refined in some of our details. Also, for you small business owners, with the stimulus package that has been passed, we are going to create a separate page on our HHTBA. So on H&H Tax and Business Advisors site, that is primarily for the tax work that we do, the tax planning work, the legal documentation, and that's also where we work with small businesses, doctor's offices, dentist's office. Those are our primary clients, but we're also, obviously we have many other types of businesses. And you're going to need to know what is available to you within this new stimulus package, how to apply for it, how to get it, how to benefit from it. And again, there are going to be a lot of opportunities within this stimulus package. So there are going to be loans up to 2.5 times what your annual payroll is, and we can help work through. Is it better to file the 2019s? Is it better returns? Is it better to file the 28 or go off the 2018s? But it may be very inexpensive money, cheapest money that we probably will see most likely during our lifetime. And so what other things can you deploy with these government stimulus packages that they're going to allow people to borrow, and a lot of those loans will be forgiven. So we're going to cover a lot of that. Again, a lot of this we're going to be building out this weekend. My team is actually working all weekend to build these things out. There are a couple things I want to cover with you. I made a promise on Thursday, and I will promise to get to that by probably tonight. And then tomorrow, if you log on to the HHRDM website, we are going to post the letter that we want everybody to write to your congressman or congresswoman or your senator to complain and urge them to please, please, please change the Secure Act law to allow the 10 years to be 10-year distribution to be classified, any distributions to be classified as required minimum distributions. The way that they have written this law is going to put it's going to completely upend all of the existing trusts and IRA standalone trusts that have been done. Now, we have our lawyer in-house working very hard on defining the new language. We're cross-checking it with our tax team. It's probably going to be at least another week to 2 weeks until we have that language refined. But it's going to take a lot of work, because our entire team is going to have to redo every single trust and every single standalone trust. But in the meantime, please write, once you get this, I'm going to write a kind of a standard template complaint letter. Please write that to your congressperson or senator. Who knows? I mean, maybe a little old us can get somebody to listen to make a change in that law. However, the second thing I want to do is make sure that anybody that is not a client of ours, please do not do the deferral of the required minimum distribution. So we got word this morning from one of our financial planners that had been in touch with TD Ameritrade, because we tried to process a Roth conversion versus an RMD. They flagged it, wouldn't do it, because they said, well, you haven't met your RMD. So we're having to instruct them, there is no more RMD in 2020. So what we have made is a blanket policy with our clients that if they were going to do an RMD, we're going to do a Roth conversion instead. Unfortunately, this only happened 2 days ago. So anybody that has already done an RMD, we can't undo it. We're still working on trying to get your Roth conversion calculations done as fast as possible. But if you haven't done your RMD, make sure that we're going to do it this year, and we're going to do it when the stock prices are depressed. And this is one of the opportunities we're going to talk about today. Let me just make sure I covered all the other things here. Also, we're seeing a lot more activity on our YouTube site, which is when we live stream, a lot of people can just log right on there, and it will tell you when we're going to live stream in addition to Facebook. If you log on to Facebook and you sign up for our page there, which is HHRDM, H&H Retirement. Okay, are we back yet? Let me see. Looks like we got off. Daniel, can you give me? Let's see. I do not see us back. All right. Hey, there we go. Right now. So it'd be great if you do get kicked off or you see that I'm frozen on the screen. One of these things where I just have to go back on and reconnect. So, okay, so hopefully we're back and live, and let me just see where I left off here. So anyway, the IRS on leave, they're at home working, and why I tell you this is that I think it's going to have a big effect on the stock market, because the stimulus package is going to be distributed by the Department of Treasury. And if that is on freeze, or these people are, I don't want to say handicapped, but they are not going to have the same kind of speed as they did when they worked at home, especially, you got 80,000 workers that are now going to clog up the internet even more. So I can foresee even a lot more volatility in the stock market as the hedge funds and institutions start playing their games, especially because that stimulus package is going to take a little bit longer than what we expected, especially with this morning's news, about the IRS being sent home. Okay, so let's get into today's discussion on what we can learn about the 1929 crash and some of the similarities in the 2001 and 2008 crash. And then what are some of the things that we can do to take advantage of some of these things during this time? So let's review really the differences, because I think if you've been watching any of the financial news or financial TV, they talk about these similarities between today's crash and the 1929 crash. And I would argue that all day long. I'd love to get on there and debate this with them, because they bring on these hedge fund people. And again, you have to be very, very careful as to what information that you listen to. Here's a great example. Yesterday, the stock market in the Dow Jones was up or down a little bit, and it was down around an average of 300 for the day. Right before the close, one of the ladies, and forgive me for, it's not any disrespect, there's just a lot going on right now. I don't remember her name, but she got on a few minutes before the market closed, whatever it was, 20, 30 minutes. And here's what she said. She said, she's from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. She said, we anticipate a recession greater than the 2008 recession. Hello. I mean, businesses did not close all around the world in 2008. This was an immediate, like within 7-day shutdown. The 2008 took a lot longer for that to trickle down. Of course, it's going to have a repercussion, but what most people do is they freak out, and then the institutions are playing that game, because what will happen is that kind of bad news comes out. The institutions know that the world will now be worrying over the weekend. So the institutions sell. The market's going to go down. Watch what will happen on Monday. The market will absolutely freak out. It'll go down. And then the hedge funds and the institutional funds will be sitting right there on the doorstep waiting to pick it up again when the whole world is freaking out because this one woman had this one statement. You got to step back and look at this from the outside. It's not the world is crumbling. It's the institutions are still manipulating the market. This is going to go into today's discussion of what happened in the 1929 crash. Now, the differences are this. In 1929, you had 10 years of the 1920s when there was just this giant boom. Now, what differs between then and now? Well, then there was basically two industries, agriculture and heavy industry. We didn't have healthcare. We didn't have pharmaceuticals. We didn't have technology. Our country was very non-diversified at that point. A lot of the loans that the banks were making were propped up on artificial value. That will remind you a lot of 2008. So companies there was no SEC back then. There was no financial regulation. People just freely traded stocks. And so you could be an insider trading. You could go around to all your people you know and slip a little secret in. Hey, I think this stock is going to quadruple. You buy it. Everybody gets on fire. They buy it and you dump it, otherwise known as pump and dump. You pump it up and you dump it before everybody else gets it. Now, not to say that doesn't go on in a small way today, but it's more of the large institutions and media now, or large institutions and hedge funds use media to create confidence or ill confidence as opposed to actually spreading false realities. Now, I think it's Altman, this guy's named Bob Altman. He is now his feet are being held to the fire because he came out publicly about a week ago and said, I feel like the whole world is going to come to an end. He actually said he foresees hell coming. And he said that the stock market can go to, certain stocks in the stock market can go to zero, primarily Hilton, he stated. He said that they should shut down the entire country. The market moved down 4% by his national media statement. And you know what he did? He had all the markets shorted. He had invested $27 million. And because the market moved down 4%, he made $2.5 billion on $27 million. You know what he did then? He sold it. And then what did he do? He bought in the market on a bull. He bought in because then when he took all that money and he started buying in and he said, now I'm buying Hilton. He said days before he thought Hilton was going to go to zero. Then why did he buy it? So now it soars up. This game will continue. This is how you have to step back and understand how to win during these times. So in 1929, we had artificial values. We had stocks back then that were they were selling at 4,000 times their intrinsic value. They had PEs in the thousands because there was no media like we have today to say what were the earnings. There was no accounting or auditing that were done on the companies to say, here's what you're paying your officers, here's what your benefits are, here's what your pension is, here's what you're paying in a dividend. You just didn't have this kind of communication back then. What it was more of gambling. And so when you take a stock market in 1929, the reason I'm disputing these things that these people are putting on TV is you got to step back and really look at the science of it. I saw one guy yesterday on Fox. He said, well, this is going to be a lot like the 1929 stock market because when that crashed, it took 20 years to come back. But let's look at a fact here. 1929, October, is when the stock market actually crashed. It actually came back around 1933 to 1934 with World War II because we needed to do what? Ramp up. Now, there was a lot of production back in the market when Roosevelt at that time gave his stimulus to the country. There was a lot, but how do you recover? And you can't put the same criteria on 1929 when you have something, a stock that is selling at 400 price to earnings. And today you might have had a stock that was selling at 18 to 19 to 20 price to earnings, and it goes down. You can't say it's going to take us 15 years to recover. That's absolutely ridiculous because we already had a fairly valued market. Back then, it was ridiculous. There was just no, it was like a lot like 2008, right? It was a lot like 2009, or I'm sorry, 1999 with the tech market. So let's step back and not relate today to 1929 and the time to recover. However, what can we actually take away from 1929? What we can take away is who made money? How did they make money? What did they take advantage of in 1929 versus today? So let's take a look at a couple of the things that I'm going to suggest that you do. So first, let's talk about defense, and then we're going to talk about offense. So on a defensive note, am I suggesting that you go to cash? No, please do not do that. Am I suggesting you run out and buy annuities? No, do not do that. Am I suggesting by any means you run out and buy gold? That would be one of the worst decisions I believe that you would ever make. However, what I am suggesting is that you rebalance portfolios over a period of time. Now, if you're our client, we're already doing that for you. I also suggest on a defensive strategy that here's a couple things that you can do to set yourself up. These are things that we learned in 2001. These are things that we relearned in 2008. And these have been very, very productive if you do them now. So let me go through a small little checklist. So one of the things that you can do is try to reduce certain expenses in certain areas. Now, there's certain expenses that I'm going to suggest that you reduce, and then there's certain expenses I'm going to suggest don't try to reduce because I think it'll hurt you more than help you. Okay, so let's talk about some of those things. One of those things is health insurance. Now, I'm not suggesting by any means you get rid of your health insurance or you reduce the amount of coverage that you actually have. But can you buy something? Can you actually increase your deductible and then buy some type of short-term or catastrophic care? Because that may actually reduce your cost and it may actually reduce any of the risk that you have in case you need medical care, especially with this virus. Number two is reduce auto and homeowners insurance. Now, here's how you do that. You look at your coverages. First, go online, start shopping around. Also, if you have sizable assets, why are you sitting there with a $250 or a $500 deductible? I have people come in and they'll have $1 million in assets and they're holding a $100 deductible on their auto insurance. And look, insurance is there for one reason and one reason only. It is to cover the expenses or risk that you cannot personally afford to cover on your own. And so if you have a $100 deductible, the way to reduce that expense is increase the deductible to $1,000 or $2,500 on your auto and your homeowners. Now, in that same tune, I want to make sure that you have enough liability coverage because I can foresee, and this is defensive, I can foresee a lot of lawsuits coming. This is what happened in 2001. It happened in 2008. I cannot find any reason why it's not going to repeat itself. It will repeat itself. You will have lawn care workers that get hurt, supposedly, on your property. You will have people in your house, repair people that can get hurt. You can have people on the road that are stops and you rear end them and all of a sudden they can't go to work. And they're going to try to recover what they've lost in this economy through people who they believe have money to do it, or even just if they think that you have insurance. So again, make sure that you have your auto and your homeowners structured correctly. You can reduce the cost if you already have a liability policy. But here, if you don't have a liability policy, increase the deductibles on your auto and homeowners, take that savings and buy yourself an umbrella policy. Okay, what else? Real estate taxes. So we know that real estate is going to drop 20 to 30%. What you want to do is be able to hit that right on the mark where you get an appraisal that shows that the real estate value has dropped. So appraisers are probably going to be looking for a lot of work. So try to line up some appraisers now so that you can get an appraisal on your house and then you can submit an argument to the county to reduce your property taxes. Here's another one that you can work on to try to reduce costs. Contact your utility company. See if they have any programs to delay, credit, grant, reduce percentages. I know that a lot of the, as an example, Comcast just offered a free 6-month internet service, and then it's only $9 after. Now, the bandwidth is not great. Now, I read this article, and I was really frustrated about this article. So this reporter gets on there, and he says, Comcast to offer free internet service, but beware. So I'm thinking, okay, what do I got to beware about if it's free? Are they signing me up for like a 10-year plan? And so he went on to say that he was disgusted with Comcast because they were only giving 25 megabytes up, 3 megabytes down on the bandwidth, and they should give a lot more. I'm thinking, please, really? They're giving it to you for free. You're going to complain about it? What is that old thing about beggars and choosers? So if they give it to you for free, that's one option. Now, here's another option. We are having major bandwidth issues all over the country, right? And so here's an idea. With your internet at home, what we have done just to protect ourselves is we have 2 internet service providers. We reduced the amount of bandwidth, so instead of paying $100 a month, we have 2 internet service providers at $50 a month each. So the price is the same. However, we are noticing at home with all this bandwidth issue, one ISP goes off and we'll just switch the wireless at home, whether it's a TV or a computer or whatever it is. So that's an idea to kind of stay protected at home. Also, what we found out is that T-Mobile has nationwide 5G activated right now, and that is actually as fast as most of your ISPs. So could you actually have a cell phone with T-Mobile with 5G and turn off your home ISP, or only have one slower, lower cost ISP at home, and then actually run while you're at home? You can actually run your entire house internet off of that 5G phone. Now, I've tested it because I've tried this, because if you know me, I like 3 backups. I like a backup to a backup to a backup, right? It's just that Titanic mentality of don't ever leave port without more lifeboats than you need, and don't ever anticipate that your ship is unsinkable. So have multiple backups. And so we've tested it at home. I think that's a great way. If you're saving money, you might be able to just upgrade your phone at no additional cost and then go to 5G, and then voila, you've got fast home internet service. Okay, what's another one? I would suggest right now, if you have a mortgage or an auto loan, you might be in a very good negotiating position to either refinance or defer some of the interest payments. Just got to be careful now that they're not going to nick your credit, so that you can defer, but it's not going to hurt you. So some companies are doing that. Wells Fargo announced this morning a couple big issues. Number one is that they're not going to come after anybody for auto loans or home mortgages for a year. The other big announcement this morning from Wells Fargo was they were closing a lot of their branches. Now, my goodness, they just approved this $2 trillion stimulus package where a lot of people are going to have to go into a bank and either borrow that money or get an application in. And I'm a little worried that that's going to delay it even more, again, putting some short-term volatility pressure on the market. But what I would suggest you do is get prepared. Now, we're not going to see any leveling in this virus for at least 3 months to 6 months, right? Even Bill Gates got on this morning. And if there's anybody that has the big data, they say Bill Gates has more big data than any government agency does with what he's doing with Microsoft and all of the healthcare charities around the world. And he basically said it's gonna take us about 6 months to level this thing out. So I may consider changing some of my timeline where I consider the leveling of between May and June. It might go now to June, July, where we're starting to see the beginning of that leveling. Again, we don't have to have it completely leveled to get a little more steadiness in the market. We just have to see that the world is on the beginning tracks to leveling the virus. And that's when we're going to see that market start to level out and start to go up. What else can you save on? Well, one of the things right now is, especially if you're over 65 years old, you probably know I have been a giant proponent of reverse mortgages since FHA took them over during the Obama years. And I don't remember what the year was, 2008, 2009, whatever it was. But, reverse mortgages were very dangerous prior to the FHA takeover of them, because you had to really know the fine print, and people could come in and take your houses under the right conditions. Now, under FHA, they're very safe, very low interest. And I feel that right now, if you have some of these offensive ideas, now is a really good time to look at a reverse mortgage. I can't recommend any brokers or any companies. You have to go online. You have to research them yourself. If you're a client of ours, when we get out of this initial tax and RMD and trust change, we're going to be reviewing all of these options. I think we have about 30 days to 45 days before we start to see any movement. So we have a little bit of time there. But I would try to research the reverse mortgages. If you find one that is good for you, then get your application in. What else? Get your application in for a regular mortgage. Why? Well, a regular mortgage, you might be able to refinance, get it down, but there's about a 3 to 5 week period of time that you're going to have to wait in order to get an approval on a mortgage. Now, what would you want to get a mortgage for? Well, let's say that you're going to buy some rental properties. You're going to buy some investment properties when these real estate prices just go to rock bottom. Then you want to be prepared, because here's how it works. There are going to be those fast and frenzy buyers. And we saw that in 2001. We saw it in 2008. They know when to take advantage of these opportunities. You have to be ready, meaning that if you show up at a foreclosure auction, and you show up at a tax lien auction, or you show up at a deed in lieu of foreclosure auction, or a negotiation, you got to be ready to be able to take that cash and get that good investment at that time. So it takes a little bit of pre-planning right now. So let me tell you who I don't think you should negotiate with. And again, this comes from lessons from past crashes, I guess is what we're going to call it. So don't negotiate with service providers, because what you're going to find, if you try to beat them up for price, you're going to get reduced services. You're going to be pushed to the back of the line. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about especially handymen for your house, repair people for your house. Now, if you need a new air conditioner, now is a great time to start negotiating for an air conditioner. You need something done with your house, you can negotiate on the materials. Just do not try to negotiate on the labor, because what will happen is you're going to sign a contract to get your air conditioner done, and you're going to be waiting 9 months to 10 months because everybody else is willing to pay top dollar. So what I learned in these past recessions is negotiate on things like your car loans. If you're going to buy a car, oh my gosh, when is the time to buy a car? So right now, if you've got a car that's got some mileage on it, you want to trade in your car, now is going to be one of the best times that you can negotiate on a new car. And we'll get to car leasing in a minute so I can explain the differences between car leasing. And I know some of you that tried to join me in that live stream, the whole internet went down. I kept trying to get back on to explain the back end of the car leasing, and unfortunately I got kicked out. So I'll make sure if the internet stays with us today, hopefully I can continue that. So on the car leases, or going back to the service providers, on the service providers, don't try to negotiate. What am I talking about? Don't try to go to the doctor. If the doctor is there, here's what I would suggest right now. Don't ask them to process. If you go to a doctor, don't ask them to process insurance. Why? Because that is the longest way for a doctor to get paid, and they take the biggest haircut on it. So what you want to do is go in and just say, cash pay, give me a receipt. And then you negotiate with the insurance company. You try to get your reimbursement or apply it towards your deductible. Look, if you go into the doctor's office and you say, here's my insurance card, they're going to now apply let's say it's a $500 bill and you got a $10,000 deductible. You're not going to get it covered anyway. So all the doctor's office is doing for you is they're being super nice. And what they're doing is simply submitting that to your insurance company. Well, you can do the same thing and get it applied towards your deductible. So take that off of your doctor's back. Go in there and offer them a cash price, because you'll move to the front of the line. If you've got a dentist, same thing. Don't try to apply towards your deductible. Give them the cash right then, right there. A couple things will happen. One, that doctor, that dentist is going to put you at the front of the line, and they're going to appreciate you so much more because it may take them 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks to get reimbursed by the insurance company if it's covered. And sometimes they don't even get reimbursed because the insurance companies under these conditions are just locked up. We have one client that has a medical office, and she literally had to threaten the insurance company with a lawsuit, get a lawyer on the phone because they're not paying. And so you can help the doctor, you can help that dentist. So don't try to negotiate with those service providers. These are all small business owners. They are literally living month to month to month with their payroll and their expenses. You can move to the front of the line. Negotiate with the large companies like the car dealerships, like the loan companies, the mortgage companies, the utility companies, the internet companies. Those are the companies that you're going to get the best deal on. And the bottom line is this, right? Who has ever been moved to the front of the line anyway? Don't you love the cable company? Yeah, I have my cable, my internet is out. Okay, we'll show up between 9 and 4. So wait a minute. What is this, the 1800s? Do you think I just sit here at home? Well, I guess I do now, right? You can't get them now. You can't even get them to come to the house now. So again, these are large companies, and you're not going to move to the line, whether the front of the line, whether you negotiate or not. So these are some of the defensive things. Let's talk about this auto and what you can do. And these are the lessons that we learned from the 1929, the 2001, the 2008. When you look back and you look at what some of the maneuvers are that people like J. Paul Getty did and how he rearranged his finances back then, and what these companies that he was creating into tax-exempt companies. Why? It was a defensive move to save on taxes. The taxes he could take and redeploy those into offensive moves. And I'm going to talk about the offensive moves in just a minute. But the goal is take a look at where can you reassign or redeploy expenses that you can negotiate down without losing services and without getting pushed to the back of the line. Okay, so let's talk about autos and auto leases. So last night I said I got caught off, but let me give you the real deal on auto leases. Why do I like auto leases? Number one, you put all the risk on the auto company and leasing company. Let me give an example why. So let's go back to 2008. So 2008, the whole market, well, even 2001, this is actually where it started. So 2001, no one was buying anything, right? I mean, the terrorists ran the planes into the Twin Towers. The Pentagon was attacked. The one plane went down in Pittsburgh before it got any further. And the whole country is literally on scared lockdown. So the auto dealerships weren't selling anything at all. So what did? They came out and said, you can take a 7-year loan at no interest to buy a car, or here's a special deal on the lease interest or the lease payment. And so at that time, I looked at this and I said, wow, what a turnaround. It's because when you take a closed-end lease on an automobile, you're literally putting all the risk on the auto dealership and on the finance company. So if you go buy, say, a Chevy, and Ford Motor Credit is the one that is going to lease that car to you, Ford Motor Credit is the one that is taking all of that risk. I love that. So sometimes people will come to me and they'll say, well, how much lease? Well, how much do you want to put at risk? Because the more you try to put down on a lease, because see, this mentality is, I want to keep my payment low. Well, you keep your payment low. The way you keep your payment low is you put the down payment down. Well, that's the buying mentality. It's not the leasing mentality. Remember, one of the things that we learned from J. Paul Getty is he had a very famous statement. And that statement was, rent that which depreciates, buy that which appreciates. So what do we think is going to appreciate? Real estate will appreciate. So we want to be prepared to buy real estate. Stocks will appreciate, in my opinion. Great country. We're going to continue to spend money when this thing lifts. We have great companies out there that know how to make money. There are going to be more births than we've ever seen since probably the baby boom or 2001. So there'll be more consumption by investments, by American businesses. These will increase. What does not increase in value? An automobile. It decreases in value. So again, why do we want to buy that? Here's the other risk mitigation factor with a lease. Let's say I take a 3-year lease. And here's the common objections because people don't understand it. They'll say, well, I take a lease. Well, what happens if I drive over the miles? Here's the question. If you buy a car, if you drive more miles, does the value go down versus driving a certain amount of miles? Of course it does. So it's no different with a lease. If I take a 3-year lease at 12,000 miles per year, at the end of that lease, if I've exceeded the 36,000 miles, then I'm going to pay a per mile penalty. Well, if I buy a car and I drive 12,000 miles per year, it's going to have a certain value. If I drive 20,000 miles per year, it's going to decrease in value. It's no different. You pay the penalty either by a cent per mile or a depreciated value in the automobile. So then people say, well, Ken, what if I want to buy the car out? Great. Here's how you do it. At the end of the lease, assume it's a closed-end lease, what you're going to do is you're going to put as little down as possible with the lease. At the end of that lease, you're going to look at the fair market value of the automobile. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with the auto dealership. It took many, many, many years for the auto dealership after 2001 to recover, right? And so here's what happens. If the auto industry starts offering automobiles, discounted lease prices, 7 years with no interest, etc., what does that do to the used car market? It kills the used car market. It's because why? Why would the average American public want to go buy your used car and when they can go buy an actual brand new car and have the same exact monthly payment, if not less? So what it does in these environments is it absolutely just tanks the used car value. So what is the advantage of a lease? Well, the advantage of the lease is if the used car value dumps after 3 years, you basically can walk into the car dealership and go, okay, here's your keys. Thank you very much. You guys just took the loss. However, let's say that the car market, and I'm wrong, the car market goes up in value. What can you do? With a closed-end lease, you buy the vehicle out. Now, some people say, well, what if I've driven over the miles? It doesn't matter. If you buy the auto lease out, they don't even look at the dings that you have. They don't look at the miles that you have. You have a contractual buyout on that lease. So if you buy a $30,000 car at the end of 3 years at 12,000 miles, you got a $15,000 buyout. It doesn't matter whether you've driven 30,000 miles or 300,000 miles. Your buyout is $15,000. So you have a guaranteed buyout, but you also have the ability to drop the car off and relieve all the risk and put the risk on the leasing company. So again, defensive move right now. If you were planning on buying a car in the next year to 2 years, buy it now. Get rid of that used car and get that trade-in going right now. Why? They're going to use the blue book value of that used car, of the value of the comparables in the last month or 2 months. Now, if you wait 6 months to buy a car, they're going to use the current comparables, which are going to be much, much, much lower because, again, these new deals are going to tank the value of the used cars. So that's how you handle automobiles right now. How about if you have a house and you've got some extra equity in that house? So here's two things. One is you better have a soluble cash flow plan so that if your investment that you take out of the house is either delayed or it doesn't pay you immediately, you've got the cash flow to take that extra equity out. Dude, please do not do what people did in 2005, 2006. They started refinancing their house. They took the equity out, and they were making these ridiculously stupid investments in real estate when the real estate was worth 2 to 3 times its real intrinsic value. And then when the real estate market crashed, they couldn't afford to pay their own mortgage, and then they lost their own house. So the key is, if you've got the soluble income, or the safe income to actually pay that mortgage, take the equity out at a very low interest rate. Here's another example. We know that you'll be able to take out if you own a business, you'll be able to take out 2.5 times what your annual payroll was, up to $10 million. So it's a lesser of 2.5 times or $10 million. And that interest rate could roll anywhere between 2 to 4%. That's pretty powerful because there's actually loan forgiveness on it. Now, if you have, let's say you set up an LLC, and let's say it was an investment management LLC, a property management LLC, and let's say that you were paying yourself an income from that, a W-2 salary. Guess what? You're going to qualify for that loan. Now, you got to get that loan in. We have not seen all of the loan structure. I'm only reading this from what has been released to the public.
And next Friday, when the actual loan program opens up, there might be more restrictions. But as of right now, you would qualify for one of those payroll relief funds. Okay, so these are offensive things that you can actually do. Let's talk about a couple other offensive things. Don't pay off any loans right now. That would be the worst possible thing to do. If you have loans, refinance them for little to no interest rate for as long as you can go. Again, if you've got a car, you can turn that in. And any kind of governmental taxes that you get a deferral on, definitely defer those loans. Okay, let's cover a couple other things here. We talked about a reverse mortgage. Okay, so let's talk about really some of the stock and equity types of strategies that you can use going forward. One of the things that you can do is if you've had stock that has dropped in value, you can take that stock out and you can actually move it to either a non-qualified account right now, pay the tax on it, or you can move it to a Roth. Everybody's eligible for a Roth. If you have a required minimum distribution due, you can take that out and you can move it over. So there are a lot of opportunities right now. Now, here's what I'm going to suggest. In the next month, focus on what large expenses from utility companies, mortgage companies, those types of things can you work on reducing? What kind of things can you buy for your house that you could get a discount? If you're going to buy air conditioners, you're going to get a roof repaired, you're going to get a pool put in. These things are things that you could probably get some pretty good discounts on right now. Focus on if you've got service providers, paying them in cash, paying them up front. You know, if I go to a doctor right now, if he says I owe you $500, I'm going to probably pay him $600. Why? I want better service. I want to be moved to the front of the line. I want to be top of mind with those service providers. If you've got handymen, lawn care people, same thing. You want to move to the front of the line. So let's look at some of the businesses. Now, if you are looking to buy a business, this might be the perfect time because there's actually been some business loans with the SBA that have opened up. However, what I would probably do is get yourself in the position of 6 to 9 months from now looking to buy those businesses. Those businesses are not going to feel the pain for about another 6 to 9 months. Some of them have laid off with some of the government programs, even like the foreclosures. I'm going to move my timeline forward. Originally, I had my timeline at the biggest decrease in real estate would happen in November, December. I'm actually going to move that timeline up to about February or March for the bottom end of that real estate. And one of the reasons is when you read some of the bailout provisions of the stimulus package, there will be people able to hire government programs for that period of time. However, when those government stimulus programs run out, that's when it's going to be open season on buying great real estate at just greatly discounted prices. Okay, so these are the things that we learned from how these people made money in 1929 and some of the here's an interesting fact. The most number of millionaires were minted in 1929 per capita of any time in history because it was the largest loss. It was the best opportunity because from 1920 to 1929, there was virtually no discounted opportunities. No different. In 2001, some of the biggest money was made when the tech market crashed and people were able to buy it. Here's a good example. Right now, Warren Buffett is sitting on $125 billion in cash. He could actually buy in the entire company of McDonald's, Starbucks, Tesla. There's a lot of companies out there that he could literally buy at such discounted prices. He couldn't have done that a month ago. So this is the time where it's also good to sit back and watch what he's doing. Now, some of that doesn't become public until after he does it, but you could watch. This is a genius at work where he's sitting on that kind of capital, and he is the guy that I followed for years. He waits until the right time, and then when everybody is at their greatest amount of fear, that's when he goes in and buys it because he's buying it 30, 40, 50, 80% on discount. So hopefully this gives you some ideas, some concepts that you can work with. And with that, I'm going to open up to some questions. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about the internet. So we actually have two providers. And even though I can jump from one to the other, which is what I just did when I got cut off just at the beginning of today's show, I jumped to another ISP because we've got two home ISPs. I just, cut them in half. And So the speed isn't half, but it gives me a backup to a backup, and I don't even know if the other one is back up yet again. And then I got a third backup on my 5G phone, which in today's internet environment, I would highly suggest. Okay. So real estate, well, there's a couple questions. So one of them is on reverse mortgages. No, the question is aren't reverse mortgages a scam? They are not a scam. They used to be 30 years ago when they were created by these gypsy con artists out of California, and the whole goal was to scam elderly people out of their homes. And they went through a lot of regulation. A lot of people got put in jail. And then the government actually figured out that a reverse mortgage was pretty good, because here's what happens when a person gets older and let's say that they've got Social Security and Medicare only. Well, Medicare does not cover long-term care. And unfortunately, there is an exclusion right now if you are in a long-term care facility and you have a healthy spouse at home, they cannot force the sale of a primary residence. So the reverse mortgage was when Obama got into office and they FHA'd everything. They made it good. They governmentized it so that it was fully regulated, so that it was very safe for seniors to do. Then what they did was Obama, and I don't remember the number, you could probably internet this, Google this, it was somewhere around $600 million or $800 million the federal government infused into the reverse mortgage lending system so that they had the money to give. Now, I've been making this prediction for a couple of years, and we'll have to see what happens. It may be with the tax explosion that we're expecting here in January, February of next year. My prediction was, and keep in mind, I've been predicting for years that we're going to go after IRAs. And every year they're doing something to nail people with IRAs with higher tax. Here's my next prediction. They're going to come out with some type of income-based determination of Social Security. So now, there's tax on Social Security, whether you're under a certain limit or over a certain limit, you either get taxed or don't get taxed on it. So it is a pullback. In addition, there's now an income-based penalty on Medicare. Look, I really believe that Medicare and Social Security are going to run into such a problem. They're right now slated to be bankrupt in 2034. And now with this debacle, it'll probably move it farther back, like 2028, 2027, somewhere around that. They're going to bail that out. Well, my estimate is what they're going to do is they're going to make reverse mortgages mandatory if somebody has a health care issue or cannot pay their bills before they give them any kind of government aid. Okay, so again, I'm a big proponent of reverse mortgages now that there's some safety built in. Okay, I got another question here. Income, well, I don't know all the different income taxes that will change, because these are things that generally the politicians will not come out and say, hey, we're going to change your income taxes. What they are going to do is they're going to say, hey, we're going to change the amount you can deduct on the back end, or we're going to put limits on certain things. And what it does is effectively increases the amount of tax that you pay without actually having to say we increase your tax brackets. Okay, how much? I have about one more minute here. Let me pick one of the juiciest questions here. All right, here's a question. Yeah, today's the weekend, so I'm wearing a golf shirt. Sorry. So, I do have to have a little sense of, not wearing a dress every day. By the way, if you notice online, that the sale of online, the sale of tops versus bottoms is now 3-to-1 because of all the video chats that people are doing at home. So I guess they must be buying new tops. All right, let me answer a question that actually has some teeth to it here. Let me scroll down here. Roth conversions, so look, no one can, the question is when should I do the Roth conversion? No one can pick what the bottom is. If you try to do that, you're trying to market time. I would say that, if you are a client of ours, we're figuring that out, but we're not trying to say, hey, we're going to do that Roth conversion at what we feel is the market low. We don't know that. We just know that it's down still 20%, and probably next week it'll be down another 5 to 8% just because of this lady that talked about the IMF and some of the other problems that we see. So we're trying to get these Roth conversions processed as fast as possible, but this is a whole new world. I mean, we've got 15 people working 24/7 to try to get this done for everybody. If you're doing this on your own, get to it. We're finding that the custodians are also very draggy because they're also dealing with a lot too. So Roth conversions, do them as fast as you can, because I can't make a prediction as when the bottom is or when the market will top out. Okay, so I'm today. Hopefully this was helpful for everybody. It gives you kind of some insight as to some offensive things that you can do and some defensive things that you can do. And again, just go to hhrdm.com. And I added a live feed on there. So if you go to hhrdm.com/events, there's now another menu on there which can actually connect you to the live stream. It's better actually to go right to YouTube and just hit subscribe, or go to Facebook and look for the events there. With that in mind, I'm going to wrap it up. You guys, everybody, please be safe. And the best thing we can do is let's just be grateful that if you're watching this, hopefully you're healthy, you're at home with your loved ones, you've got some food in your cabinets, and that is better than a lot of the other world. And in the meantime, while we all get through this together, let's make sure that you are taking the right steps proactively to not only come out of this financially okay, but take advantage of this. This is one of the best opportunities I've seen since I've been around. Have a great day.